Thank you for listening and checking in. Hello and salut and hola, ni hao, shalom, konnichiwa, all the hellos, all the welcomes. Thanks for checking into Radio Retrospekt. My name is Antonio Polanco, and actually we have a new co-host today. My trusty cohort, unscrupulous, ingenious. He is Mr. Michael Corsino. Mike, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
What's up,
Michael
man?
Corsino here.
Yep. And Mike, we couldn't afford an applause thing there, so I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
So Mike, why don't you just tell, this is your first show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm from the Bronx. My name is Michael Corsino. I'm an actor,
The Boogie Down?
performer, boogie down all day,
Boogie Down?
ever since I was born. I lived in California, lived in Connecticut, went to school in Connecticut, theater major. It was a good time growing up, 1986 to now 2016.
That's right.
So, the Bronx is still cooking.
It is. My mom lives in the Bronx, actually, right by Yankee Stadium. So yeah, Mike, welcome. We're very, very glad to have you here. So guys, listen, just real quick. We are not licensed historians. Is that a thing, Mike? Like being a licensed historian?
I think I'm not sure if you can be licensed, but I'm sure you can be a historian from just studying.
Right. And that is what we are striving to be. So we don't pretend to know everything. We truly do not, but we just want to explore history with you guys. These different stories and events and just downright crazy stuff that happened in the year 2010. And we'll also, I just want to cite some sources for all the information that we got. Of course, we do a lot of our research online, from Wikipedia, from InfoPlease, EndMemo, The People's History, DoSomething.org, Ballotpedia.
Used CBS.
Yep, CBS.
BBC.
Yep, BBC. So we also, in addition to sort of the online engines, we also use use information from Encyclopedia Britannica, news articles from Time Magazine, CNN, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, The Guardian, Politico.
We used
Reuters, everything. HuffPost, Pew Research, Al Jazeera.
Wherever
BBC,
you can find information, we
France
used it.
24, exactly. And that's all the hard work that those reporters did for that time.
Definitely.
So let's get right into it. 2010, MMX.
Yes, sir.
Right? Designated as the International Year of Biodiversity and the International Year of Youth.
Yeah.
So, Mike, why don't you get us started with the economics of 2010?
So, in the year 2010, the average cost of a house was $232,000, $888.
Right.
$2.73 for a gallon of gas, which is roughly the same now, if not cheaper.
Some of these prices are pretty comparable to today.
The postage stamp was 44 cents. Cost of a dozen eggs, $1.37. Price of gold, $1,237. Price of a barrel of oil, $73.
Right.
And the U.S. population at the time was 308,745,538 people.
Right. How specific of you?
I had to.
With that figure.
I had to.
Right. So, kind of piggybacking on economics, we have the hot products of 2010, and a lot of that included board games, five-finger shoes. I don't know if you ever had a pair of five-finger shoes that you rocked.
I've seen
openly in the street.
I've not rocked them openly.
Groupon coupons, Huggies blue jean diapers, Ford Fusion. A lot of, in terms of electronics, portable e-readers, smartphones, laptops, the iPad and the iPad Nano were big sellers in 2010.
Right.
And then in terms of food, you had the Mars pretzel M&Ms were introduced.
Oh, man.
The Starbucks Via, which are like the portable coffees. The KFC Double Down sandwich.
Oh, ew. Yeah, but yes.
If you just feel like kicking your heart in the balls, you can eat one of those. And related to that, actually, Four Loko drinks. were pretty popular in 2010. You know, they were later outlawed, but
Yes,
I
they
remember
were.
everyone drank. I had a Four Loko.
I had a Four Loko, I'm not
Everyone
gonna lie
had
either.
at least one or several.
After 2 or 3, you were done, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. All right, guys. So that was a bit of economics. So now let's move on to we generally like to keep the show in sections. So next we're gonna move on to the international front. So, Michael, what was going on around the world in 2010?
There was a lot of craziness going around the world in 2010. I would like to start with earthquakes.
Earthquakes.
So
Yes.
many of them.
Yep.
Especially the big one in Haiti.
Yep.
That was very devastating to the area. 7.0 magnitude earthquake in Haiti, devastating the nation's capital, Port-au-Prince. Death toll, 316,000 people.
Right.
Seven deadliest on record. It's incredible how natural disasters destroy whole populations, whole countries. The country's capital, its region's worst earthquake in 200 years. The quake levels many sections of the city, destroying government buildings, foreign aid offices. It basically made everything into a slum around there.
Yeah, and you look back on pictures of that, after the aftermath of that quake, and it'll break your heart. Each picture will break your heart a little more.
You know, that's why the efforts for it, when they had all those telethons and all the celebrities talking out about it, that was a wonderful thing for everybody to come on board.
Yeah, the Hope for Haiti telethon,
Hope
which
for
I think
Haiti.
you're gonna get into a little bit
Right.
later, right? When
Right.
you speak on music, but
Exactly. I mean, it was just a big moment in history because the whole country was leveled. It was over 300,000 people died. I can't even imagine that in New York City. And then let's talk about Chile.
Let's talk about Chile.
8.8 magnitude earthquake.
Oh, I thought you were talking about
No.
Wendy's chili. But
Oh, no.
You're talking about a Chilean earthquake. Okay.
Yes,
gotcha.
I am. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It devastated that area as well. With low fatalities, surprisingly enough, 750 people were killed in the devastation. However, close to 2 million people, 1.5 million, they say, were displaced. The country, long enough to be at high risk for earthquakes, had enforced strict building codes in the urban areas, which helped to limit the amount of damage in these areas, but buildings and homes in poor areas built with adobe did not fare as well. It's very sad story as well. And I would like to say that these earthquakes happened so close in time that one almost went into the other in the efforts to clean up the areas. Haiti into Chile, and then we also had one in China, 6.9 magnitude, killing at least 2,000, injuring more than 10,000. Very devastating earthquake as well.
Yep, that was the Yushu earthquake.
Yeah,
that
please,
had in April.
please try to pronounce some of these names.
Yeah.
Because
So, and I know you're avoiding it,
yes,
but there is the Icelandic volcano that caused, earthquake, and even when I was researching this story, every time I look at the word, it's just frustrating. It just frustrates me to look at the word, but it is the Icelandic volcano Eyjafjallajökull,
that was really good.
and that volcano erupted from the top crater at the center of the glacier and led to the closure of a lot of European airspace.
I can't even imagine. You can't travel within Europe.
At all. So what else was going on internationally, Mike?
Let's see. We had the WikiLeaks,
WikiLeaks?
that exposed tons of different countries and their rise to some of the things that they were doing within their countries, a lot of secret dealings. So I would go into some of that with, Julian Assange.
Yep.
Starting WikiLeaks. He had over 466,743 number of classified documents from Iraq and the Afghanistan wars released within this time.
Right, just in that year alone.
Just in the year alone, just about those two things. Now, he also touched on many stories across the world with some of the stories that he was talking about in Iraq, Afghanistan, as well as China with Google. He released those documents.
Right.
He released a lot of
about
public
the
information.
war in Afghanistan. Right. A lot of classified, covert material was released thanks to WikiLeaks. And I guess people go to. He's kind of like the digital age, Deep Throat, right? Like in terms of like whistleblowers, he's really at the top of that organization. Like he probably can't even he has to travel around covertly so people don't know or can't trace his every step. Every time I see a interview with Julian Assange, he's like behind a green screen, somewhere classified.
Right.
No way you can get his coordinates at all. But yeah, no,
I mean, he's been on the run for a while.
Mm-hmm.
In 2010 is where it was his claim to fame with all these documents that were released.
It's when it really blew up.
Over 90,000 internal reports, as I'm reading now, about the United States-led involvement in the war in Afghanistan from 2004 to 2010. 6 years of us being in the shadow. And for it to bring to light, he was an Australian man, co-founder, and he was arrested in England on a Swedish warrant. It's hilarious, all these things, from country to country. In connection to accusations made in August, 2 women in Sweden accused him of sexual assault. He was denied bail by a London court, and hundreds of internet activists attacked several businesses seen as enemies of WikiLeaks in response to Assange's imprisonment. Amazon, PayPal, and the MasterCard website are among those attacked. With an onslaught of web traffic, December 14th, Assange is released on $310,000 bail but remains in British custody temporarily. He faced possible extradition to Sweden for his alleged sexual assaults on 2 women. The U.S. Army considered WikiLeaks a national security threat as early as 2008, according to the documents obtained and posted by WikiLeaks in March 2010. This one man, I mean, he had followers, right? He had hackers. He had people with him.
He had a whole organization.
He had a whole organization.
Right.
So he was the face. He was the face. He allowed these people to do all the work, and he took all the credit. Kind of.
I don't know if he.
Do you think so?
Well, he sort of took all the credit, but in an organization kind of like Anonymous or people that don't necessarily want to be pictured because they might get into some kind of legal problems.
Mm-hmm.
Julian Assange in that way serves as, every major organization needs a face, right? So in that way, Julian Assange serves WikiLeaks as sort of like the head. But it's complicated. I mean, is WikiLeaks doing a good thing? Is WikiLeaks, they're exposing all these different stories? Is that good? Is that bad? So it's a complicated issue. But yeah, every organization, every major organization, whether it be a news organization or a whistleblower organization, a digital whistleblower organization like WikiLeaks, needs some kind of face to put with that.
But why does the government feel that we can't understand what's going on? Oof. That's what it comes down to.
We could do a whole
show on that, right?
We could do a whole show just on that, man. What else is going on around the world?
2010, we had the multi-country offensive launch in Afghanistan as thousands of American, Afghan, and British troops stormed the city of Marjah, Afghanistan, in an attempt to destroy the Taliban's latest haven.
Right.
The attack by the 6,000 troops is the biggest offensive in the country since the United States invaded Afghanistan in 2001. Now, the Taliban's top military commander, and I'm not going to pretend like I know how to say his name correctly.
It's Mullah Abdul Ghani. Baradar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is captured in Karachi, Pakistan, in a secret joint operation by the American and Pakistani intelligence forces. American officials claim that Baradar is the most significant human capture since the war in Afghanistan began in 2001.
Right. So that was sort of like that major, what you call a surge, but this time it was a multi-country surge,
right,
to capture or to really just try to end the war in Afghanistan.
Trying to dismantle the Taliban.
Right.
That's what it looks like.
And it was fairly successful for a period. But, with that area and that region, you're going to have a lot of strife. You're going to have civil war. You're going to have...
2010 was the year of war. There was a lot of war going on.
A lot of years in 2000s were the year of war, sadly. Yeah.
I mean, in 2010, it sounded like I believe that Barack Obama was trying to switch in a way to take out the troops in these foreign countries.
Yeah.
Our troops. And also eliminating high targets at the same time. So it is a catch-22. You're trying to eliminate high targets as well as remove the troops so that they're safe at home.
Right.
I mean...
And then in that same region, right, you had Iraq kind of doing their elections, but those were marred by all the violence that was going on in Iraq at the time.
Yeah, the explosions marked General Election Day in Iraq, where 2 bombs killed at least 38 people at the time. Mm-hmm. Iraq's election commission reports that 62% of Iraqi voted in the election, though that the number drops to just 53% in Baghdad, which is the capital, where the violence occurred. The final results are not expected for several weeks, but preliminary figures put the State of Law Alliance, led by Prime Minister Maliki, and the Iraqi National Movement, headed by former Prime Minister Alaway, in a close race ahead of the other candidates. Election officials said none of the alliances will emerge with a clear majority, forcing the winner to assemble a broad coalition to form a government, which is always a problem. The glacial pace of the vote count was attributed to the painstaking process intended to reduce the risk of election fraud. Okay, I believe that. Final results of the election. This is opinion, I know, but I'm reading facts. Final results of the election.
We kind of like high wire act the line between, objective and subjective materials. So
I'm trying to be trying to read the facts without giving opinion, but it's kind of it's a tough thing to read.
It was hard, but ultimately it was it's good and bad, right? So you did have elections, right? People being able to speak their voice in Iraq for first time in a long time, but terrorists saw that and they just saw an easy target and they just saw a bunch of people, and so it was easy to attack them. But give all the credit in the world to the Iraqi people for being like, you know what, F that. We want our voices heard. This is what democracy is about. So
they still had the election.
Yeah,
exactly.
They still had the election. So, and then finally, in terms of international stories, you had the Arab Spring.
The Arab Spring,
and that started towards the end of 2010. A lot of the momentum and the more powerful events that happened during the Arab Spring happened in 2011. So we'll talk about that when we get to the 2011 retrospect. But the Arab Spring was basically a revolutionary wave of protests and demonstrations and riots, civil wars in the Middle East, in the Arab world, that actually began in Tunisia with the Tunisian Revolution, and then that kind of spread out to different countries. But a lot of it stemmed from, widespread discontent at economic hardships that were felt by especially a lot of the young citizens of Tunisia.
Right.
And it actually started when Mohamed Bouazizi set himself on fire. Young man, unemployed, and he basically set himself on fire after officials told him to stop selling his vegetables.
Right. He set himself on fire in protest.
Right, in protest. And then, that caused more widespread protests, and it caught steam, and it really caught fire, and it became this
literally
this movement that reached Syria and Libya and Yemen. They all had civil uprisings. Bahrain, Egypt, Algeria, Jordan, Kuwait, Morocco, and even in Saudi Arabia. So it was this growing sort of movement with the Arab Spring to get awareness of this of all these terrible injustices that were going on for different Arab citizens. But again, that'll be something that we cover a lot more in depth when we reach 2011. But it did begin. Did the Arab Spring in 2010?
The last month.
Yep. What other stories happened around the world?
Let's do some lighter stuff.
Yeah.
Here we go. January 4th, beginning of the year, the tallest man-made structure to date, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, is officially open, which is cool. It's the largest structure.
Largest structure in the world, man.
2,700, 16 feet, with 160 floors. That's pretty awesome. You know,
I bet you it is.
I
bet you it's
2,700
freaking awesome
feet, right?
to be there. Yeah, like Oprah probably has like 3 floors of that place.
Right. 160 floors.
Yeah.
And run a marathon in there, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Let's move over to the Chilean miners. How about that? Because that's also a feel-good story, you know, in a weird way.
Very feel-good story. Yeah, in a weird way.
There were 33 miners working in San Jose copper gold mine near, if you feel free to pronounce that name if you would like, Copiago, I believe. Copiago, Chile?
Yeah. Copiapo, Chile.
Became trapped 2,000 feet underground after a cave-in and mining accident that captured global attention. All successfully extracted, all of them, all 33, extracted from the mine 69 days later.
Yep.
An estimated more than 1 billion people across the planet watched their televised rescue. All rooting for them, of course.
Yeah, there was daily coverage of the 33 miners and how they were doing. And I think there was later a movie that came out called
they did a beautiful movie, yes.
That recently came out.
Yeah, with Antonio Banderas.
Right.
Shout out to Antonio.
I'm not gonna lie. I want to be Antonio Banderas when I grow up.
Yeah?
Desperado, man.
When you grow up?
And mariachi. That's right.
Do you want to disclose how old you are now?
I'm 33.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
33 miners. There you go. Perfect story for that. And Antonio Banderas and growing up to be him one day.
Yes, one day.
I love Desperado, though. Side note. But that was a beautiful story right there. You know, all 33 came out alive. They all rationed their food when they were underground, from what I heard and from what I've read and researched. They outlasted longer than what they ever expected, due to the intelligence of these men. I think there was a couple main leaders within that group that kind of rallied everybody together and kept everybody alive. I wish I had those names.
They were probably the reason why they stayed alive.
Exactly.
Those men.
But shout out to those guys, because those guys saved another 31 guys.
Yeah.
You know, you got to have a good leader when you're in a tough situation like that.
When you're buried underground, yeah.
69 days. Imagine
69 days.
Underground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you could stay with your coworkers somewhere for 69 days straight in a limited space?
I don't want to curse, so I'm going to use the best language I know. I can right now. Probably not. Probably not. Yes. I love people I've worked with over the years, but there are certain people that obviously you cannot do 69 straight days.
You could probably do one day, maybe 2-3 days.
If I had to.
We're talking about 16. That's like more than 2 months.
With limited food
that's more
and
than
drink?
2 months and a week.
I would be really irritated.
Yeah.
Limited drink and food right there. I'm a big guy, so I eat a lot. I drink a lot. I would take up most of the ration.
I'm not even gonna go there.
Yeah. Please don't.
No. So there were a few other stories, of course, that got a lot of attention. There were the 2 female suicide bombers that hit the Moscow metro system.
Mm-hmm.
At the peak of rush hour in the morning, they killed 40 people.
Wow.
There were also the floods in Pakistan that caused higher than normal monsoon levels. And, of course, it left millions homeless, starving, caused a lot of disruption, general disruption to the country's activities. And, of course, there was a humanitarian effort to help the citizens of Pakistan.
Right.
And you also had Standard & Poor's downgrade Greece's credit rating to junk 4 days after the activation of
to junk.
To junk. That is a bad letter to get.
Right.
Sorry, we're going to have to downgrade your credit rating to junk. And that happened for a whole country, Greece,
right.
nonetheless. But this was a big story. I mean, this was a huge story. Triggered the decline of stock markets all over the world, the euro's value, and put a further debt crisis in Europe. But then later in the year, the eurozone and the IMF agreed to £110 billion bailout package for Greece.
A bailout.
Yeah. Well, you know what? In any other case, I would say no bailout, but it's like a fucking country, so I would say yeah. All right, bail out.
Bail out the country.
Bail out the country.
Want to talk about what else would you like to talk about? United States? Or?
So let's move into the U.S.
Okay.
Los Estados Unidos. Lot of stuff happened in the U.S. in 2010. A lot of it political. We'll start with, and a lot of it not so happy, strangely enough. But we're going to start with a happy story, Mike. $75,000.
Would that make you happy?
What would that make?
Are you asking me or?
I'm asking you. Would $75,000 make you happy?
For how long?
Oh,
the first year?
I don't know, man.
Annual household income.
You get a check in the mail, $75,000. Would that make you a happier person overall?
Oh, it would make me happy, yes, to have that money for the moment.
Well, you are not alone, because there was a study that was released in 2010 by Princeton University and also by two researchers, Daniel Kahneman, who was the 2002 winner of the Nobel Prize in Economics, and Angus Deaton. And they wanted to put this question into perspective. And people generally, felt happier when, they were trying to look for the figure, like a figure to put on what it takes for a person to be happy, and $75,000 a year was it.
Well, let me ask you, $75,000 with annual income.
Yeah.
You get this every year, 75 G's. Yep. It's set for life.
Yep.
Would that make you happy?
Yes.
Are you sure?
To start, yes.
To start?
Yes.
No, I'm saying this is it for the rest of your life. You don't...
For the rest of my life?
For the rest of your life, $75,000 set income.
I would hope that I could improve on that each year. But,
you would invest.
It would make me happy. Yeah, sure. $75,000. And part of this story was they wanted to know, like, why. Right. Why would $75,000, that specific amount, make you happier? And they reported that, lower a person's annual income was below the $75,000 mark, the unhappier he or she felt. And, on the flip side, no matter how much more than $75,000, dollars that a person might make, it didn't necessarily change, or they didn't report a greater degree of happiness.
Right.
So it just kind of it's a life point, right? Like people that thought that if they were making $75,000, it's connected to how they're feeling generally about their life.
Yeah, I could see the connection. I mean, your bills are paid.
Right.
Everything is budget. You have a nice solid budget right there to start with. Definitely solidarity within your life can bring happiness.
Yeah, and then so that's the point. One of the points they were trying to make, right? They asked people how they had felt if lower income did not cause sadness itself, but if it made people feel more ground down by the problems that they already had. So, for example, people that felt like among divorced people, right? This Time article states. Among divorced people, about 51% who had made less than $1,000 a month reported feeling sad or stressed the previous day, while only 24% of those people earning more than $3,000 a month reported similar feelings. But among people who and you know, among people who had asthma, 41% of low earners reported feeling unhappy.